Diplodocus, one of the most special dinosaurs to me. The Diplodocus was a big dinosaur, being a sauropod and all, and in fact may have been the longest amongst all dinosaurs. But in Ark, they're nothing but full of shortcomings. I credit a lot of the reasons for why I like dinosaurs with the Walking with Dinosaurs episode, Time of Titans. And to be more specific, the Diplodocus. Their massive size and herds made me believe in the impossible, and from there forever sparked my interest in all things dinosaurs. But how does this connect to Ark? Well, because I really want there to be a reason to tame the Diplodocus. Right now, outside of maybe the early game and maybe mid to late game PvP, they're essentially outclassed by everything else. Which is a shame, because I see a lot of potential in this dinosaur and want to help the Diplodocus find its place in Ark. I have a few problems with the Diplodocus, but the most obvious one is the fact they do 0 damage. This hinders your ability to use them for a lot of scenarios. For example, Diplos are pretty good for carrying heavy materials and loot drops in an early game, and can be used to soak bases. But what happens if you get attacked by dinos or players when doing these things? Well, you're going to have to rely on yourself. This is a tame you protect, not one that protects you. This means you're better off using other early game creatures, like Trikes and Stegos. They do have one thing that is unique to them, and that is a 10-seat passenger saddle with 1 rider. This seems pretty cool, but there's still some things wrong about it. In PvE, it's totally subjective if you like this or not, with some enjoying it and some who rather be on their own tames. But in PvP, this is just straight up a disadvantage. It's gonna be way better for 11 people to be on 11 mounts. However, speaking about the saddle, this brings me to a theory about the Diplo. As some of you may know, the Diplo does have attacks in the dev kit, but they were never added to the game. And the question is, but why? My theory is Ark thought the Diplo might have been too strong, being able to carry 11 people on it, and dealing damage. They probably already made the model for a saddle and thought about how else they could nerf the Diplo. So they made a choice to completely remove the ability of the Diplo dealing damage, leaving the Diplo defenseless. But that's just my Blue's Clues about it. With that being said, what would I do for a Diplo TLC? And speaking of its tail, the Diplodocus is most known for its extremely long and possibly loud tail. When the Diplodocus was discovered, it was thought it could whip its tail, much like Indiana Jones, and was even believed it could break the sound barrier, but since it has been disproven. But why not resurrect this theory in Ark? It's not like Ark isn't used to bending the rules of reality sometimes when it wants to. I mean, there's literally a cat made of fire. The Diplo's new ability would be called Whiplash. Snapping its tail so loudly, it creates a noise that temporarily deafens even the most loyal of tames. This means creatures will stay on the last whistle command they were on until the time is up. For example, if a tame is on neutral, you can't whistle passive, and if a tame is on follow, you can't whistle on follow. This would be useful in PvP, as sometimes the player might whistle their tame away from you, or to attack you. The Diplo can help to prevent this. Say you kill a rider off their flyer, and a flyer was on passive and not following. Well, now that player won't be able to whistle the flyer to attack or to flee, forcing them to find a new way to save their tame before it's too late. There would be a cooldown between when a creature is affected by this noise and when it's not. The second ability would be called Tree Topper. Tree platforms are usually safe because of how high up they are, but not anymore. Using its large and longer back legs, the Diplodocus rears up and smashes its massive body against the redwood tree, shaking the entire tree. And with every push, it brings creatures on the platform closer and closer to the edge till they fall off. The smaller the tame is, the easier it will fall off. I would not have wild Diplos be able to do this, only tamed ones. My last ability for the Diplo would be called All Aboard. One of the most annoying things in Ark is when you're just out of range of being able to click ride on a tame. Like, you can access its inventory, put it on passive, and even subscribe directly blue. But it's just staring at you because it knows the only thing you can't do is ride it. Here's where the Diplo comes into play. The Diplo has a passive ability that increases the range at which riders can ride their dinos. This will be really useful for when you're moving items and get too heavy to move and are just out of range of a tame. I think this would make sense since the Diplo has a massive saddle, and I just think it'd be a cool ability for the Diplo to have. Starting off with the model, I actually don't think it looks that bad. It's got its elephant-like body and long neck, and it's pretty big. But what bothers me most is that it simply just looks outdated. So many creatures from the early years of Ark suffer from this, and I think a lot of them need remodels. Also, I think the tail of the Diplo is just a little too short. Just a little though. However, one thing I actually do really like about the Diplo is its overbite. It suggests that Diplodocus did have an overbite, but most depictions of Diplodocus don't actually show this, so it's cool Ark does. So for the Diplo's model, I simply would just update the model and give it a slightly longer tail. I definitely think the Diplo should have the ability to do attacks. I think attacks it was supposed to have works perfectly fine, just being a stomp and tail whip, which isn't too creative, but surprisingly, no sword in the game can actually do both, so I think it would actually be really nice. I also think the Diplo should be able to enter boss arenas, as I don't think it would be too overpowered, and it would just be nice to have a new boss fighting dinosaur, and a very big one at that. Those are my ideas for a Diplodocus TLC in Ark. Do you like my ideas? Tell me in the comments below. Anyway, I'm Rexy Blue. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a great day. Be kind, and bye-bye.